So, Impact Wrestling have officially announced the return of Impact Wrestling Knockouts legend, former Knockouts champion and Knockouts Tag Team champion Taylor Wilde. She is returning to the company. Now, during this week's episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV, it was officially announced that Taylor Wilde is returning to the company soon. According to PW Insider, the former Knockouts champion was officially signed in late 2020, but her return was delayed due to work visa issues. Now, Wilde's first run with Impact was in 2008. During her career, she was a one-time Knockouts champion and a two-time Knockouts Tag Team champion. Now, she left the company in 2010. A year later, in 2011, she retired from professional wrestling and became a firefighter, but is returning very, very soon. Now, Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore commented about her return. He tweeted, quote, "I've been excited about this one for a while now. Welcome home, Taylor Wilde. Can't wait to see you back inside the Impact Zone." Now, they've been doing these vignettes, these promos for at least 2-3 weeks at this point. And to be honest, I don't mean to say or be one of those in the know sort of just annoying people of, oh, I knew this for ages, but this has been a story, to be honest, that's been reported for a while, hasn't it? The Taylor Wilde return to Impact has been widely reported. Obviously, Impact taped this lot of television content a couple of weeks ago. Was it 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that? It's been on the cards for a while, and frankly, I'm pretty sure we did a video at some point last year. I think it was late last year. It might have been around the time she actually signed her contract, saying that she was set to return, and it didn't happen. Now, at the time, I thought to myself, oh, we've done this video saying that Taylor Wilde was going to return. It didn't happen. It was around the time that Jordan Grace was looking for the tag team partner for the Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament. And I was pretty sure it was going to be Taylor Wilde. And obviously it wasn't. In the end, it was Jazz. And it was kind of like, well, where is this Taylor Wilde story coming from? Because it was from PW Insider at the time. And I think Fightful had reported it as well. And it just never happened, which seemed really, really strange and odd. And a lot of people thought, well, was this just a planted problem, or what happened here? Now that we know that actually those reports at the time were actually very accurate. She had signed a contract to return to Impact Wrestling, but due to visa issues and obviously getting into the country from Canada and all that kind of stuff, it was just really difficult to make it work. But now it's finally worked. She was part of the Impact Wrestling TV tapings. She is going to be part of the Impact tapings going forward. So Taylor Wilde has returned to the company, and I think it's fantastic. Obviously, she's got a ton of history there. As I mentioned, former Knockouts champion, former Knockouts Tag Team champion as well. She's got a lot of history with the company, and she's been part of some fantastic matches as well. I remember when she won the Knockouts Championship, was it 2008? I think it was, when she defeated Awesome Kong, and I remember being really surprised at the time. Like, I knew wrestling was a work at that point, I wasn't stupid, but I just remember at the time thinking that Awesome Kong was so dominant, and it was really surprising at the time that Taylor Wilde defeated her, and I thought that was just such a great time for the Impact Wrestling Knockouts division. You go back and you watch some of those matches in 2008, they are so ahead of their time. Whether it's Awesome Kong, Gail Kim, Taylor Wilde, they were just having absolutely spectacular matches. The Beautiful People as well. What a great time. What a great time for Impact Wrestling. So I'm glad to see her back. I know it's something that she's wanted for a long time, and I know it's something that a lot of fans have wanted for a long time. And let's be honest, right now, it's a great time for her to return because the Knockouts division has lost a couple of people recently, whether it is Jazz, who's retiring, whether it is Taya Valkyrie, who signed with WWE. There's another knockout that's departed as well, which we're going to speak about in a second as well. So there's certainly a lot of names at the moment that have left the Knockouts division. So there are a few holes to fill, if you will. And Taylor Wilde is absolutely a great name to come in. I think. What does she do? What does she go after? Well, there's only one name to go after, really, isn't there? And that's Deonna Purrazzo. So it's going to be fascinating to see who she does feud with, who she does face off against. I think Taylor Wilde versus Deonna Purrazzo match is money. I absolutely think it's money. And what's interesting with Taylor Wilde as well, I mentioned that she retired from professional wrestling in 2011 to become a firefighter, but at the time she was incredibly young. I think she was still in her 20s when she retired. So this idea that, you're going to have someone coming back that's a shell of their former selves is just not going to happen. She's still completely at her peak and ready to go. So I'm very excited. Again, I think I would think at some point you don't bring Taylor Wilde back in just to be involved in matches on Explosion or whatever the program is at this point. I think she probably comes back to feud with Deonna Purrazzo. When that happens, I don't know. I think Slammiversary coming up in July is definitely an option. But you've also got to think as well, there are a ton of recently released female wrestlers that I think could be on their way to Impact Wrestling once their 90-day non-compete clause comes up. I think Chelsea Green, I think she comes into Impact Wrestling. I think the Iconics, I think they both come into Impact Wrestling, considering that the Impact's the most prominent place right now of a female tag team championship division. I would think that the Iconics would be looking at that saying, look, that's perfect for us. That's absolutely perfect for us. We can run that division. We can put the Knockouts Tag Team Championships firmly back on the map. They've got established tag teams in Fire and Flavor in Impact Wrestling right now. It's just it's a perfect place. It really is a perfect place for the Iconics right now. So I think that's three big names that are going to be coming into Impact Wrestling in the near future. So now really is the time for someone like Taylor Wilde to come in, because it's just perfect. It's absolute perfect timing for her to come in, because there's going to be some big names coming in. I really look forward to a Chelsea Green versus Deonna Purrazzo feud, and I'm saying that like it's already happened, but I think it is. I think it's near enough nailed on. I really think, especially the case of Chelsea Green, but also the Iconics, I definitely see them in Impact Wrestling in the future. So it's a very exciting time for the women's division, and let's be honest, I know I've spoken about this time and time again when it comes to Impact Wrestling, but for me, the best women's division, certainly in North America. I know you can make an argument, and some people have, when I say this about the best women's division in the world, because obviously you've got Japan, you've got actual speciality companies and promotions in Japan like Stardom that are all about female wrestling. I get that. In my opinion, maybe my narrow-minded opinion, I don't know, I do think the WWE has the best women's division in the world. They certainly have the best women's wrestlers, I think, in the world overall, and I think they're getting different styles of wrestlers in there right now, and considering that you've got people like Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks main eventing night one of WrestleMania, incredibly doing it as well. It's not a token gesture. They're doing it because they're some of the best at what they do, and they had an absolutely stellar match, one of the best matches, not just of WrestleMania weekend, but of WrestleMania week. I do think WWE has the best women's division in the world. I would think a second, the company that's got the second best women's division, certainly in North America. Again, the world maybe is a bit of a judgment call there, but I think the company that has the second best women's division in North America is Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling, and they've been seeding at this point. They've been seeding female talent for WWE for a while now. Obviously, with Ty Valkyrie going over there, Chelsea Green, as I mentioned. So those names in Impact are very strong. And the women's division, I've spoken about this so many times here on the channel, where my criticisms of the AEW women's division, which I do think is improving, but this is where Impact thrives, is because they put their female wrestlers in a position to succeed. They put their female wrestlers in the main event. They put their female wrestlers main eventing pay-per-views, main eventing television specials, main eventing Impact Plus events, whatever you want to call it. Impact Wrestling have this desire to see their women's division succeed, because they know for a long time, for the longest time, however long the Knockouts division's been around now in Impact Wrestling, it's one of the pillars of the promotion. It's one of the pillars of the promotion. It's a fundamental element to the promotion, and it's really what's helped the promotion succeed at times. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Taylor Wilde, I mentioned those matches all the way back in 2008. When it comes to Taylor Wilde, Awesome Kong, Gail Kim, those matches hold up today. And it's because of that philosophy when it comes to how they book their female talent in Impact Wrestling that's made them stand out at certain periods of time. So I think that Taylor Wilde is coming back into a thriving Knockouts division, which does need bodies and needs names at this point. And I do think more are going to be coming in the future. So not only is Taylor Wilde going to obviously be able to face off against Deonna Purrazzo, Kimberly, Sue Young, Jordan Grace, those names are still there, but possibly you're going to have a Chelsea Green, you're going to have a Billie Kay or a Peyton Royce coming in the future, maybe even Mickie James, she's a former Knockouts champion as well. Suddenly, again, that Knockouts division just looks incredibly strong, doesn't it? And she's going to have some fantastic opponents to face off against. So very, very exciting when it comes to Taylor Wilde and her return to Impact Wrestling. But one name comes in and another name is leaving or has left, and that is Nevaeh, because Nevaeh has announced that she has left Impact Wrestling. She recently competed in her last match against her former tag team partner Havoc. Now, Nevaeh has left Impact Wrestling following her loss to Havoc on this week's edition of Before the Impact. Now, she took to social media to thank Impact Wrestling and to comment on her recent match. She tweeted, quote, "Turns out I was the weakest link. Thank you to Impact Wrestling. This last year was incredible for me." Now, according to F4W Online, Nevaeh was actually never under contract to Impact Wrestling. She made her debut in April of 2020, so it looks like she was just on one of those per appearance deals or agreements, if you will. Now, Nevaeh was best known in Impact Impact as Havoc's tag team partner until they broke up after a loss to Knockouts tag team champions Fire and Flavor in March. Now, I don't think this one is really truly surprising. If I'm correct, Navaya is actually the partner of Jake Christ, and obviously he recently left Impact, and there was a bit of a cloud over him when he left. Not that that was his fault; it was a family issue and all that kind of stuff. I get it. I don't want to get too much. I don't want to get too much into that one again. But to me, that isn't surprising. Obviously, with those kind of situations, it's kind of it's a matter of time, really. What I do find slightly surprising about it is that Havoc and Navaya were featured heavily on the programming, especially when you were in the Knockouts Tag Team Championship tournament. They got to the finals. I mean, they lost to Fire and Flavor, and I guess they lost the rematch. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the agreement with Navaya was, we still want to feature you. We still think that you as a tag team with Havoc are money, and we still want to feature you on the programming. Maybe it's a case of, can you actually help us establish an up-and-coming tag team like Fire and Flavor by putting them over in the finals of the tournament? I mean, it's a dominating tag team, Havoc and Navaya. They were powerhouses. That's why I liked them, because they were unique in comparison to a lot of other knockouts in Impact Wrestling at the moment. So maybe it was a case of, maybe it's just a case of we'll put over Fire and Flavor, and then you can do the breakup with Havoc, put her over, and then you can leave the company. I think that's probably the most likely explanation when it comes to Navaya. But again, I really enjoyed the tag team that she had with Havoc. I think, as I mentioned, when it comes to women's wrestling, and this is it's almost irrespective of gender, to be honest. But when it comes to any form of wrestling, you have to have different types of wrestlers. You have to have different size, different shapes, whatever you want to call it. And Havoc and Navaya, I thought they were a fascinating team because they were powerhouses. And they, especially when going up against Fire and Flavor, who are smaller wrestlers, I think it was a real nice clash of styles. And look, they put over the tag team strong. And then Navaya's done good business in putting her tag team partner Havoc over on the way out. So shame to see that she's leaving. But as I mentioned, it does look like more names are going to be coming in the near future. I mentioned Chelsea Green, I mentioned the Iconics, possibly Mickie James. There might be some other names too. So it's an exciting time for the Impact Wrestling Knockouts division, absolutely. Especially with Taylor Wilde coming back in, and obviously Navaya departing. Where does she go? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. Possibly wherever Jake Chris goes. I don't know. Maybe it's an NWA. I don't see her going to an AEW, or I don't see her going to a WWE either. Who knows? If the independent scene was really truly open and thriving at this point, you could make an argument that she could go to an independent, or they could just run the independents. This is the kind of situation that I do empathize with people at the moment, is that, previously, and I mentioned the WWE release stars. The good thing about them being released, a positive you could look at, is that there are plenty of places for them to work, whether it's AEW, Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Select Indies. That's a positive thing. Where I do empathize with people like Navaya and maybe Jake Christ and those other names is that previously, if you would have left Impact, you would have said, well, it's not a massive blow because there are plenty of other independent promotions. The indie scene was thriving in 2019 with so many shows. Every single night of the week there was a show. You could still make a very good living on the independent scene. Obviously, that's not really the case right now, because obviously different states have different regulations, and so many independent promotions, it's not financially viable without a crowd there and all that kind of stuff. They're trying to figure out ways around it, but it's difficult. So I do sympathize and empathize with certain wrestlers that would just hit the indie scene and not be part of a major promotion, because they can't do that right now. And maybe that's why we've seen other wrestlers go to some of the bigger promotions, because they don't have a choice because the indie shows aren't open. So I don't know. To answer the question, I don't know what Navaya will be doing going forward. Hopefully we'll see her on some independent shows. Hopefully the independent shows will open back up soon. I just did a video earlier today talking about possibly fans being back in a stadium at SummerSlam for WWE in August. So hopefully as we get through the year, we can start seeing more and more independent shows opening back up, and we might see Navaya there. But she obviously, as I mentioned, did a fantastic job in Impact. I enjoyed the Havoc and Navaya tag team, but she is no longer with Impact Wrestling. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on some of the Impact Wrestling news stories we've spoken about today? What are your thoughts on Taylor Wilde returning to Impact Wrestling and Navaya leaving Impact Wrestling at the same time? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below, all opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.